Hello, I'm Mr. Red.
A horse is a horse, of course, and no one can talk to a horse, of course. That is, of course, unless the horse is the famous Mr. Ed.
And Bill, there's the music that used to introduce
And what a memory.
that great,
What a memory.
great television show, Mr. Ed.
And Buddy Boy, as he was so affectionately called by Mr. Ed, is on the other line.
Yeah, and of course those days of growing up, television, the black and white days here in Australia, you remember those as I do.
Certainly do.
Did you grow up with Mr. Ed yourself?
Yes, well, now I was a little bit older. I was actually married. I was married young at 19, but my children certainly grew up with Mr. Ed.
So I was just in my very early teens in the 60s, and just to sit back and watch this show. Anyway, the man's on the line. Alan Young, welcome into Australia.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Leigh and Bill. Thank you. It's nice to be here.
And of course,
Australia.
we mean that very, very nicely to you because you are so well known, among other things that you have done, for Mr. Ed. They must have been great days for you, Alan.
They were my best days. I mean, best are in the future, but they were my best days up till then.
Right.
Alan, how did the show come about?
It was written in some old magazine stories in the 1920s and 30s, actually, and it was called Mr. Ed and Wilbur Pope.
Uh-huh.
And the director of Francis the Talking Mule got the rights to Mr. Ed, and he said, I'm going to keep this for television. So he kept them, and thank goodness I met him, and that was it.
As a kid, I can recall watching Mr. Ed talking over the barnyard door, as it were, and of course the mouth would move almost synchronised to the words that were being uttered. And of course only you could hear what Mr. Ed was saying. I think that's fascinating because today with modern technology, Bill, we can do all of those things through computer generation. We couldn't in those days. That must have been pretty hard, Alan, to get the sync going.
Well, what I loved was it wasn't in sync because you knew that the horse was trying to talk. He was moving his mouth, and Rocky Lane, the voice, was watching that and giving the words off stage. Right when we did it, there was no later on.
No dubbing.
Dubbing or syncing, whatever. Rocky Lane was so great; he copied Ed's every move, and I swear Ed tried to say the words. I know that sounds ridiculous, but I feel he did.
Well, we were fooled.
Well, I was fooled too, and I was right there.
Did you fall in love with Mr. Ed?
I had never known horses at all, except they had hard feet and they stepped on you until then.
Yes.
And I was not too good as a rider, and I turned to Lester Hilton, the man who worked the horse, and I said, Lester, I don't ride very well. He said, I know, I've watched you. So he said, I'm going to give you some lessons. So he took me out with Ed in the paddock, and I learned to ride on Mr. Ed. And Ed was so kind.
Alan, how did you get into the business?
Oh my goodness! I was from England and Scotland, and came to Canada. And I guess poverty got me into the business because my family had no money, and I used to imitate different people from the old country. We used to get a thing called the British Empire program. I used to imitate Stanley Holloway doing Albert and the Lion, and Sir Harry Lauder and Gracie Fields. I would imitate them. And finally, somebody hired me to work in a Scottish show and do one of those little things, and he paid me $3. He said, I'll give you $3 or I'll give you a free dinner. Well, I had eaten Scottish food, so I said, I'll take the $3.
You didn't want the haggis.
When I got it, and he said, he worked about, 8 hours in the mines in Canada to make $3. And he said, son, you stick with this talking business.
And of course, you went on from there too. We had Tom Thumb, The Time Machine,
that was
Baker's Hawk.
George Pell
hired
me for when I was working in England. I'd gone over there to stay there. I'd gone back to my home country and stayed there. And he saw me, and we did Tom Thumb. And then he promised me Time Machine later on.
And of course, more recently, there was Beverly Hills Cop 3. Now, there's a funny story to this, I believe, with your hair.
Yes, they bleached my hair to make it for Uncle Dave, a nice white-haired old man. and it never came back. It stayed white. I've still got the same amount of hair, but it's pure white now, which gives me a lot of respect. And people open doors for me and say "sir" and so on.
Did you sue?
No, I like being called "sir."
Well, that's right.
No, I thought you may have sued the company.
I play tennis now, they give me nice low lobs, and I can hit them back.
Now, you mentioned tennis there. You are a sporting fan because you follow Aussie rules, don't you?
Oh, my goodness. I watched a game 2 nights ago. It was, I guess, New Zealand, is it the All Blacks playing Australia, or were they playing Melbourne? I forget which it was, because the phone rang and I didn't see the ending. But no, I've never learned to like American football too much. They wear the pads, and because the Australians, they don't wear pads, but they hit pretty hard.
We're pretty brave over here, Alan.
Well, I don't know about brave. Maybe you're like we Geordies. We're a little bit stupid, but we have lots of fun.
Yes.
Well, it's entertaining anyway.
Oh, it's great. It's just great.
Now, Alan, you're also an Emmy winner on 2 occasions. One, I believe, yes?
Well, it was one occasion I won 2 Emmys, for which I was most grateful.
Right.
The next year I didn't win a thing.
Uh-huh. Do they repeat the Alan Young show at all on television, or is it available on video in the United States?
No, I have all the kinescopes in my basement. It was done live then, and they called them kinescopes. They photographed the show, and they're kind of fuzzy and everything, but I like to look at them now and again and say, hey, that was kind of funny.
They're great memories.
Funny, but fairly funny.
Great memories to have.
I was lucky enough to locate a copy of Androcles and the Lion, which I should have in my hands in about 2 or 3 weeks.
Oh, yeah.
So I'm really looking forward to viewing that again.
Alan...
Well, the cast was great, and Gene Simmons is such a beauty.
Yes.
But we didn't mention Rod Taylor in Time Machine.
Well, no.
No, another
He's
great
one of
actor.
your folks.
He is.
Certainly.
And a real sweet man.
Yeah.
Good.
Alan, if you had your time again, would you do anything differently?
Yes, I'd probably take care of my teeth better, because I've got two bridges.
Right.
But I don't think I would do anything else differently. The mistakes you make teach you something better.
Yes.
No, I wouldn't do a thing differently.
Are you looking
Except
at
I'd go to Australia when I was 17 instead.
Uh-huh. Uh-huh. How many times have you been to Australia?
How many times?
Yeah.
Never.
You've never been here at all?
No, Alan said he would have gone to Australia when he was 17.
Yes, but he's never been here.
Well, you might have been
never
our...
been west.
You might have been our export and played the lead in the Time Machine, and Rod Taylor may have played your part.
No, Rod, he was too handsome to play anything else but him. I wasn't that good looking enough.
Well, you played 2 roles in the movie, though.
Well, I played myself and played my father and
Yes.
my grand, whatever it was. But no, Rod was. We're trying to do a Time Machine 2. Because he and I got together about 3 years ago and found out we were very fond of each other in a manly sort of way.
Yes.
And we'd like to work together again. So we'll
Time Machine 2 may come up then.
Pardon me?
We may see Time Machine 2.
Well, maybe some Australian company will do it because it's public domain. Anybody can write a Time Machine 2. Because it's over 100 years since it was first written.
Well, you're talking to the right man, Bill Vass. He's listening to all of this and
Oh,
he
yes.
might get on board with that one.
My mind is racing.
Yeah. Now, look, before we...
You think it over, but I'd love to come to Australia.
We'd love to have you in Australia. Love to have you here. Alan,
Never been west. Pardon?
Before we leave you, tell us about the death of Mr Reid, because this is rather sad, wasn't it?
Well, he was farmed out, as I say, and I used to ride him every morning, but I was out of town, and Lester Hilton was out of town. And Lester hired a horse sitter, and Ed used to love to roll in the grass, but he had trouble getting up because his legs were so skinny and weak and his body was pretty fat. He used to flail around a wee bit before he got up, and the poor man thought he was having a fit. So he held his head down, as one does with a horse, and slipped some tranquilizers in his mouth. And Ed had never had any medicine at all, and he went to sleep, and he stayed asleep.
And, of course, this story didn't break until some years ago, did it? It was sort of... was it covered up, do you think?
Very few people knew it. I knew it, and I did until they had a false Mr. Ed. Somebody said, this is Mr. Ed, and it wasn't.
Yeah.
And I had to correct it by saying, this is the way Ed went. Very peacefully, and we were all broken-hearted.
Oh, you would have been, certainly.
Oh, you betcha.
You'd be happy to know that Mr Ed is still showing here in Australia on our Foxtel cable television network. and doing great guns over here, being enjoyed by millions of people in Australia all over
I'm so
again.
Grateful. Well, God bless. Do they still use the term cobbers?
They certainly
Yes,
do.
yes.
Certainly
Well,
do.
you're my cobbers.
Good on you.
Thank you.
We could even say mate to you because you're very, very much
mate,
part of
yeah,
us.
that's universal, mate.
Mate or buddy boy.
Yes.
Okay, whatever.
Alan Young, it's been a delight to catch up with you and talk about Mr. Ed and, of course, your life and what you've done. Have a very, very happy New Year. This is New Year's Eve here in Melbourne, and, of course, for you
it's New Year's Eve there.
Yes,
of course
it is. Yes. You have the day before. But you have a lovely 1998, and if ever you come to Australia, please look up Bill and myself. We'd love to see you.
Well, God bless you all there, Leigh and Bill, and I wish you very, very happy New Year. As we used to say in Scotland, happy Hogmanay.